Good morning. Good morning. It's Friday morning, August the 17th. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Blog Talk. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning. Let's see who's going to join us. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to start out this morning with a tribute to the Queen of Soul herself, our Aretha Franklin. Yes. Good morning. And I know you'll reach out and take mine. You take our pain. Good morning. Good morning. It's a winner winning. And the wind blew right now. All we need is Jesus to linger right here.
Most people don't know how much work she did with Martin Luther King. She devoted an enormous piece of her life to Martin Luther King, which meant giving of herself, yet she herself was not a sloganeer or a polemicist.
And every one of our lives is almost Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. That was our brief tribute to the Queen of Soul herself, Miss Aretha Franklin, y'all. She passed away. Y'all may not know this, but she was absolutely my all-time favorite artist in the whole world. So God bless her soul. That was a powerful, powerful, powerful voice, powerful woman that I don't believe we've lost. I think she's just transitioned. That's how I see death. You're just on the other side of it. Oh, we're going to miss her. And that, yes, somebody said black girl magic. Absolutely. So let's bring in my trusty co-host this morning. Let's bring to the broadcast Mr. John Armwood. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Tamara.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Rough morning, huh, John?
How do you like to wake up and your paycheck is not in your bank account?
Woo!
And they're making excuses.
Woo! I'm gonna want to fight somebody.
Let's go.
Good morning. Let's bring Mr. David into the broadcast. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Tamara and John.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
I think we need a labor leader, David.
What did you say, John?
I think we need a labor leader.
All right. So this morning, y'all, we lost a great, great soul, the Queen of Soul herself, Miss Aretha Franklin, and that damn Omarosa, y'all. She's been all over the media. So this morning, I wanted us to talk about and kind of dive in. We're gonna put the phone number up for people to call in, and let's talk about the political power of Black women. Black women are not just an anchor in the Black community. Black women have long been the force behind the Democratic Party. Say that.
Amen.
Black women do the work, and Black women are pivotal in this election cycle. Whether it's bringing home the victory for Doug Jones over in Alabama, or touching our souls like the Queen of Soul herself, Miss Aretha Franklin, or bringing down the White House like our homegirl who is trying to come back to the cookout, Miss Omarosa. The political power of Black women cannot be denied. What you guys think?
I think that Donald Trump does not understand who he is messing with this time. He really doesn't understand. She has her issues. That's a given. Nobody's going to deny that. But she is not stupid. And she's somebody who scrambled up from the bottom to get where she is. So she knows how to scramble. She knows how to fight. And she learned Donald Trump's game plan, as she came up. So she is turning it back on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
And she's
player
not
is
finished.
getting played, huh? The player is getting played.
Oh yeah. Well, I never thought Donald Trump was a player. You know, when he started on third base and got home on a walk, it's like, you know, he's fighting with somebody who's got the second base by hustling, and it
Right.
wasn't a ground rule double. She hustled.
Yeah.
So it may not be the nicest person in the world, but he crossed the wrong person.
David, what you think about that damn Omarosa?
Yeah, I don't feel like we need to spend a whole lot of time on her per se. I mean, I
She's
think,
good. She's good, David.
yeah, I think that we just got to watch this play out. She has mastered, you know, she's now the no longer the apprentice. You know, she's learned everything she had from the, you know, it's like those kung fu movies where, you know, where the sensei teaches everything to the you know, to his protege, and the protege goes ahead and saves, you know, goes beyond the master. I really think that we just need to watch this play out. It's only just begun, and
Well, definitely.
the walls are closing in, and you know, we're waiting for the Manafort verdict. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that's going on that I think is going to make for a very interesting next 3 months, or however much time we have, about 90 days left before the midterm. And I think, yeah, and also that there are all sorts of forces that are, I would say, conspiring against Trump. You know, there are too many forces, and we need to keep that in mind, but not let it distract us the way that it has MSNBC. You know, from they spend hours every night. I mean, I'm watching them now. I'm fast forwarding through so much of the you know, the three main anchor programs, because they just keep repeating the same thing. They're never out. They're constantly focused on this you know, internal war going on within the ruling elite. And there's no information, there's no conversation, there's no reporting on all of the amazing grassroots stuff that's going on, both within and outside the Democratic Party. I mean, I keep on waiting for them to talk about these what do you call it? These primary elections, and they don't say a word about it. They just announced it, and that's about it.
It's an exciting time politically, I think, John, and David. I think that it's an exciting time because, you know, people are mobilized, and people are getting excited about the possibility of change. But the one thing I don't want us to forget, and that's where, John, I want you to jump in. You know, we're going to hold these candidates and elected officials accountable to us as a community and as a people, and we're not going to let them make these empty promises about what they will, you know, what they're going to do when they get inside and then don't do it. We're going to hold their feet to the fire, right, John?
Oh, definitely, David. One thing I wanted to say, and I agree with you. Within MSNBC, they have just gone Trump 24/7.
Yeah.
With the occasionally, Chris Hayes is on vacation, but when he's there, he'll occasionally throw some other
Yeah.
stuff in. But the good part about it to me is that this midterm election will be a referendum on Trump. I think that's very good strategically for us, because if we can make it about Trump and holding Trump accountable. I mean, the firing of, not the firing, but taking away the security clearance from Brennan and threatening others is clearly an abuse of power. And this kind of behavior, along with everything else, makes the argument for us as grassroots activists that, look, I don't, you know, you may not agree with us on everything. You may not be a Democrat. You may be a Republican, but you know that we're in a dangerous situation in our country. And we believe in a multi-party democracy. That's the American model. And we need a party in power to put a check on Trump in Congress, at least the House of Representatives, because there is no check right now. This is not like 1973 when the Republicans were at least making an effort to join with Democrats to put a check on Richard Nixon. And right now we have Emperor Donald and nobody is putting a check on. Voters, we need to put a check on his power. And I think that's a rallying cry, which upper middle class can deal with, working class folks can deal with. I mean, it's broad based. It crosses the color line. It crosses class lines. I think that we, in a way, if we use that, I think we have a really good argument. It's like sometimes it's like anybody but so and so. We have to put a check on Trump.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with that. I sent you and Tamara that thing from I'm going to do one of yours.
Yes, please.
Right. And that quote I think is very important for maybe to share with the people who are watching in. There are 20,000 new voters on average that will be voting in 2018 for the first time. But even more crucially, there are 200,000 eligible non-voters. And every electoral district, every congressional district in this country has on average 200,000 people who do not vote. Now that is what Steve Phillips is saying. And I'm going to read it off my other computer here. In fact, the largest pool of people Democrats should be trying to tap is actually non-voters. The 200,000 people per district who were eligible but didn't cast ballots in 2016. In other words, in a presidential election, it is in these sectors of society where Democrats will find the source of success in the path to winning back the House and taking back our country and winning elections for years to come. And I would argue that those people, although Steve Phillips tends to steer away from them, those people include working class whites, and that is and that they are they are as much a part of this left out constituency of this group of people who have been disillusioned and turned off to politics because nobody represents their interests as workers. Although the Republicans now increasingly shrilly, through a megaphone, try to represent their interests as whites, in other words, their racial superiority interests. And now it's no longer a dog whistle, it's a megaphone, it's a bullhorn that's shouting out to these folks. And I don't think they vote for Trump. I think that they just stay home. Because the electoral system in this country is rigged to be totally under the control, not simply of the billionaires, but of what I keep calling the 9.9%. And Steve Phillips has some really, really interesting information about that. One of them is that the last midterm election, 2014, $700 million was spent on politics, on political, and 95% of it went to predominantly or all white consulting groups. So when we're talking about holding people accountable, that's part of holding them accountable. Who are before the elections? Where are they getting their money from? I'm not
so
talking about Citizens United. I'm talking about where are they getting their money from? And who are they giving their money to? Who are they paying their money to? And we need transparency in that. We need to talk to Lucy McBath. We need to talk to whoever is running for not just congressional seats, but state Senate and House of Representatives seats. Where
Okay,
are they?
let me read a question. Let me read a question. So this is from Tanza. She says, Mr. Slavin, how do we reach them?
Yeah.
We've been doing voter registration forever.
Right,
Many
right.
believe that their votes don't count, and that's untrue.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The wisdom of crowds saying that their votes don't count. Maybe that's the case. I think that look. I think one of the things that we need to recognize is that there are invisible people out there, who are community leaders, community activists, who are respected by their communities, and they are the ones who are going to determine, the whether or not their communities come out to vote. They are the ones who are going to put we need to reach out to those folks.
And this is where we have the conversation. Let's bring it back full circle. And this is where we have the conversation. And what today's topic is about is the political power of Black women.
Exactly.
We have to have, like David just said, we have to have those conversations in our communities. And, it's hard because people have their reasons why they are sitting on the sidelines. They don't trust the system. They don't trust politicians after we've been lied to over and over and over again. And, these broken promises when these elected officials are in office, people are tired and they're like, what should I vote? Why should I vote? My vote doesn't count. They're not going to do anything different anyway.
But Black women actually do vote. That's the funny thing.
Yeah,
Black
we vote, but
at
talking to our community
at a higher rate than the general population as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that we have issues in this particular election that we can motivate people on. Look at the ads, and going back to David, because David made a crucial point. Where is that money coming behind the candidates? We've been seeing PAC ads on TV every single night attacking the Democratic gubernatorial candidate. I mean, I just get so sick of it every single night on the news. Where is that money coming from? What political action committee is funding that? Who is behind it? Is that the Koch brothers? Who is it? We need to know, because the disclosure on the bottom is not really telling us any information.
Right. But the other thing is we need to know where the Democratic money is coming from, not just the Republican. We kind of know that. And the other thing is, I read a New Yorker article a few years ago that was talking about television advertising for electoral campaigns, and the position that a number of people who are political scientists are taking is those television ads don't do a darn thing. They do a little bit for mobilizing the base. They don't change anybody's mind. The only way we're really gonna change people's minds, so they could spend all of their money. The Republicans, it's almost like, yeah, please go ahead and spend your money that way. But for Democrats really need to spend their money on mobilizing people at the ground level.
That's true.
Let me tell you an anecdote that's in Steve Phillips' book. He says that Stacey Abrams came to the Democratic National Committee 3 years ago or more and said, give me some money. I've got this whole organization and I'm mobilizing, registering voters all over the state of Georgia. And the big money donors, the billionaires who are
Soros and all.
The equivalent of the Koch brothers. Phillips didn't mention Soros or Steyer or any of these other people. Said, we think those people. We need to invest our money where the active voters are, and by that they meant trying to win over Republicans, middle of the road Republicans, and unfortunately Steve Phillips tends to conflate the middle of the road voters with all whites, and I think that's a terrible mistake to make. So anyway,
let me jump in. I think the piggyback on what you just said, David. I think there's some fear around candidates that are particularly. I'm gonna speak specifically about my district, where it's it's predominantly white, quote unquote.
Right.
And there's a majority of there is a black and brown base that is not mobilized at all, not heard, like you just said, these invisible people. And I think a lot of times candidates in these districts are afraid to venture over into the issues or running a campaign that's centered around black and brown issues or minority issues or the working people issue, because they think that they will push away some of those moderates. I think they are afraid.
Yeah, and I agree with you.
Yeah, and that's the point. There are 200,000 of these folks that they're pushing away in every congressional district. So, you know, the fact that Sally Harrell, let's, you know, say her name.
Say her name. I'm about to say her name. I'm about to give you a story. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, the fact that Sally Harrell does not have the cultural competence, you know, it seems to me from what I've seen about her, to be able to talk to folks who are in that position. And at the same time, let me say another thing. A lot of those people who are apparently well off, you know, well-to-do in the 40th Senate district and in the 6th congressional district, they are part of that 2/3 of the people in this country who cannot put together $1,000 in an emergency. So, you know, yeah, there are more of them that are fairly financially secure, but there are an awful lot of them that are among those folks who have much more in common with the folks who are living in rental apartments, you know, are working for wages than we think, and to bring them into solidarity with, into communication with the folks that are people of color and wage earning working people that's the way that you're going to win against a really sophisticated, well-funded incumbent like Fran Miller.
Yeah.
You know,
let me give you a story, David. So I got a Facebook post where I was tagged, where people are calling this one particular person, sends this post, and it says, "We call on Tamara Johnson Shealy to support Sally Harrell." And let me give you my response. I'm going to read it out loud. So in my response, I said, "Saving my receipts on Democrats too." And these are my responses. So response 1, "You ever thought that Sally doesn't need me? Honestly, if Sally cared anything about her black and brown constituents, she would have reached back to me by now," because Sally hasn't reached back to me, y'all. "Sally's strategy of divide and conquer worked in the primary election. We all will find out if that works in the general election. But oh wait, there's a black candidate at the top of the ticket. Maybe that is what she is betting on, and maybe that will be her saving grace." Mm-hmm. I have a second response to this post. And it's Beth Moore, who knocked on my door just a week ago today and asked for support. So my response to her, because they tagged her in this post as well: "Beth knocked on my door, which is House District 95, and asked for my support. I shared with her that I host a broadcast with David Slavin and John Armwood, and we would like to have her as a guest on our broadcast. I sent Beth a message almost a week ago, which is a week ago today, and I have not heard back. I understand the importance of working together in a coordinated campaign," which is what this post was about. They're all working together, some candidates. "I understand the importance of working together in a coordinated campaign, but I hope that Beth is mindful that in politics, her constituency comes first." So this is what's happening in my district, where these candidates are, I know they're afraid to lean more towards the left with us and be a part of, you know, the whole solidarity movement, because they are afraid to lose their voters that they think they might get on the other side.
That is so true. I had that same experience with Sally Harrell when she first ran. I didn't know who she was. I've only been in this part of in the 40th for 2.5 years, and I was sick for about a year and a half, 2 of those years. And so I went to a House event with her just to see who was running for the district and to meet people. I met her. I talked to her. She was as cold as an icy in the freezer, and they took my name, etc. I left bewildered, but not perplexed, because I kind of knew what was going on, and never heard back.
Yeah.
Never heard back, and didn't expect to hear back
These
until I got that
candidates don't have a
wonderful
message
phone
for
call
Black and brown
from
people, John.
until I got this wonderful phone call from a woman by the name of Tamara Schiller Johnson, and she
Johnson
called me,
Sheila.
engaged me on a phone call, and I was energized and expressed that I had to come down to her campaign headquarters. But Sally had the opportunity and pushed me away.
Yeah.
So thankfully she did.
Yeah. But she didn't reach back to me. So the Black and brown opportunity and having a relationship with Black and brown people, they're running a very lily white campaign. If you look at all the people around her and all the messaging, she has no messaging or nothing for Black and brown people. So Beth Moore, who's running for House District 95, I have extended the olive branch to you. But if you don't, trust me, you can get in the same boat with Sally, and we will withhold the vote on you as well. Politics is not a pretty game.
You saw her post. She was claiming that she had this wide coalition in Gwinnett County. Yeah, I wonder who's in that coalition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, are there any people of color in that coalition?
Whose post was that? Whose post was that? John?
This was on Tamara's website. She says
on my Facebook page.
Your Facebook page.
Yeah, someone tagged me in a post, so we'll have but the moral of what I'm trying to say is that don't underestimate. I put out a post this week about a quote that Karen Hunter made about Black and brown people, Black and brown about women, how white people underestimate how Black people operate. Please don't underestimate how we operate.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's absolutely the case. And that's my experience from. Oh, sorry, John. I didn't mean to.
No. Go ahead.
That's my experience at my Unitarian congregation. And also the other point that I want to make is that Sally Harrell is running on a ticket that has, in the congressional district that John Ossoff lost by a hair, all right, a Black woman running in the congressional district. And as I may have said last week, Nate Cohn of the New York Times pointed out that Ossoff lost by the number of votes, by less than the number of votes of the Black voters who did not vote, who voted in the general primary and did not vote in the runoff. I don't know if I'm making that clear.
Yeah. You mentioned that before. I read that column, and I quite frankly was annoyed by it because he seemed to be blaming Black voters for that. And I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I felt that was wrong because I worked very heavily in that campaign. And one thing I did notice though was that the Ossoff campaign was open to Black voters, was open. He had Black support. He reached out. He was not a Sally. I don't want to put him in that thing. John Ossoff and I talked about these issues directly. He was not informed. I literally told him where to go in the Asian community because he didn't know. He was meeting with Chinese leaders. He was doing it. I felt they did it a little bit too late, but he was trying. And remember that district. In the previous congressional election, the Republican candidate had won by 67%. There has not been a Democrat in the 6th district in 30-some years. Right. This is the devil's district. And you know what I mean by the devil. Newt Gingrich's old district. Right. I lived there for 32 years. Yeah. So what Ossoff did was remarkable in that particular district. Now, people compare it against Hillary Clinton's numbers, and that's not a fair comparison. That is not a fair comparison. That district is overwhelmingly affluent. I'm talking about affluent. Very affluent.
Well, Fran Miller, who's the current senator, admitted how it was gerrymandered. What did he say? We didn't gerrymander this district for Hank Johnson's protege. So he made it quite clear that these lines have been drawn to make sure that they never get certain people or get anybody other than a Republican elected.
Yeah, they cut out West Cobb.
Yeah.
Purposely.
But Tamara and John, the point is that you've got Lucy McBath running for the the 6th congressional, and you've got Stacey Abrams running for governor. I mean, if you try to ignore race in this election when you're running for the 40th Senate district, you look stupid.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
really, you really look stupid.
Yes.
So that I think is an important part of what what we need to pay attention to, and maybe take some people by the shoulders and shake them a little bit. Wake up, folks.
And you're 100% correct, David, because I don't think I don't want to say this because prior to elections I won't say it, but I think it could make a difference in some races. Because we have Stacey Abrams. Black women are going to vote. Black men, we got to get out to vote.
Yes.
I think we are the problem.
But Black people as a whole, John, don't take us for granted. Do not take us for granted.
I'm sorry, but Black women vote.
Yeah, we're going to vote.
As a certain person in Alabama across the state line, I'm name more about that. We vote, and we go, and the numbers we vote. We have to motivate Black women to vote but they will vote. I'm concerned about getting people that don't vote out to vote and giving them a reason to vote. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have people who are suffering. Money for housing, subsidized housing, as an example, for poor people, has been cut. Monies for food stamps have been cut. Basic programs that people need to survive. Healthcare monies have been cut. Education monies are not being spent, which have been appropriated. All of these issues are bread and butter issues for average people.
Yeah.
We need that message out there, and we need to know and be able to point to a target to vote against. Many times, a negative ad does work. Yeah. Democrats don't like to run them, but negative ads have traditionally worked. And it doesn't have to be a TV ad. Mm-hmm. It can be posters, what you call it. Right. And we need to get out there and get into the communities, go to meetings, go speak to people, and on the street corner, because I've been doing that, and talk to people about why this election matters. And messaging to me is key. And stop the fool message. Stop the racist message.
Yes.
I think it's very, very important.
Let's get people to call in. Let me give out the call-in number. It's on the screen. Call in and talk to us. David and John and I, we can go on and on and on. We have no problems with talking. But give us a call. We would love to hear from you. Our call-in number is 929-477-3442. Call in, talk to us, let your voice be heard. We want to hear from you. Again, 929-477-3442. Go ahead, David.
I think this is... I'm getting some feedback here. I want to point out something that I'm getting some echo in here. I'm not sure what's going on. That part of a really key part of the messaging, even if you're just trying to reach these affluent voters in the 40th or the 6th, is to point out to them the hidden costs of the racial inequality, because what John, the list that John was enumerating about the ways in which the Republicans have been starving and undermining the security of working people gets translated to people who are wealthy or affluent as, oh, I'm going to save taxes, and that money is mine. I mean, this was the message of George W. Bush. It's your money. And people fall for that, not realizing that what they're doing is creating enormous hidden, and back end costs for themselves. When as we were talking about last week or the week before, when people don't have health insurance, they, the state, the government pays for that health insurance in different ways. Because when people come into an emergency room, rather than have regular health checkups and preventive care, it costs 10 times, 100 times as much. And it's not the poor folks that are paying for it. It's going to come out of Medicare, in effect, the same, the budget from people from Medicare for people who are over 65. If people don't get that, then they think, oh well, I'm saving my own money. If people are poorly educated, if this generation is poorly educated and is working for low wages, they can't put into Social Security, and so the sense that we are all in the same boat together is solidarity. It's the message of solidarity, and whatever you want to call it, that's really what people like Sally Harrell should be saying to their supposedly affluent constituents. I mean, what we are paying for at this point is, and oh, by the way, I found my, now I've been told by QAnon that what happened is that John Armwood snuck into my house and took the book for 2 weeks, and then he snuck back in and he put it back. And so, I have it now, but I think he's trying to mess with my head, is what's going on.
So you have a stereotype that's a
QAnon.
again. Some things in America never change.
Well, I'm just following QAnon. I'm just following QAnon here, to say that. But anyway, Dean Baker's book "Rigged" really does talk
Hold
about
it up again so people can see the title.
How I don't know if
hold it to your side. Yeah, good. And
okay.
bevel it a little bit.
So it's called "Rigged," and it's got a hand squeezing gold out of the globe. It's a really, really pretty dramatic title.
Yeah, it is.
How globalization and the rules of modern economy were structured to make the rich richer. Mm-hmm. And he's not simply talking about the billionaires. He's talking about that strata below the billionaires, the 9.9% who do get benefits out of this system. Most of the rest of us, we have illusions. Most of the rest of the European Americans, we have illusions that we get benefits, or illusions that we could somehow make it into that 9.9%, and it's just not true. It's that group has hermetically sealed itself off. They are a new aristocracy, and even if you have relatives that are in that group, it's very, very hard for you to from the 90% to get in. And for people of color, Black and brown and Asian people, it's 97% white. That's the simple message to get across. So we have to set up a different set of aspirations and focus for people who are who think they're going to make it in this way.
We have a caller. Let's see who this is that's joining us on the broadcast. Let's see if we can get them on. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. This is Tons of Thomas. I decided to jump off line for a minute and call in because you guys are giving the most information about what's going on in voter world today. And I was wondering if you guys were planning on doing a tour, because a lot of this information, I've been trying to keep notes. Y'all know I'm going to go back and watch it again because I'm trying to keep notes. But we've been doing this work so long in a grassroots organization. And every year we keep saying the same thing. And every year we got stats and research. And every year, every election, the same thing keeps occurring. So I wanted to know if you guys would do a tour so that the local communities could understand it the way you're giving it out today.
Awesome. Tanza, where are you? What city are you in?
Columbus, Georgia.
Awesome. Thank you for calling in, guys. I love the idea. I think she is on to something. I think we should go around and we could definitely discuss this and definitely make Columbus, Georgia our first stop. And we're going to stay in touch with Miss Tanza. Thank you, Tanza, for calling in.
We'll drive down 185 any day.
Thank you. Yeah, see, yeah, I'm excited that, we are making a difference. We're doing some good work. We actually had a comment on social media, just like, I promise you, it was probably like 1:00 in the morning. I was up really late last night on social media,
I saw that.
Going back and forth with a gentleman who was talking about, who hadn't seen our broadcast, who just saw David and I, we have a post about an upcoming seminar in September called White and Woke, and how do we wake up other white people. And this guy did not understand that we were doing good work until he started watching our videos. And then he started tagging in and saying that, you know what, you guys are definitely, on to something, and we need to wake up. And he's a white guy, and now he's a big fan of yours, David. I just wanted to share that with you. Yes. And John, I tagged you in one of those where he was talking.
Oh,
and
yeah, I
told
know
you
that.
to watch you on Armwood Armwood Opinion on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And people should also be aware that I'm doing this Lifelong Learning Institute at Emory for the fall, a class that I've done a couple of times now and has gotten really good. It's called What is White Privilege? Mm-hmm. And if people want to go to the OSHER, OSHER, Lifelong Learning Institute at .emory.edu, they can see what the course is like and sign up for it and join in. And if it's people who are low income and cannot afford I think it's something like $60 tuition or something like that, they could contact the director and he will give a tuition waiver. So I want to invite people to participate in that. It's a 7-week course. It'll meet on Monday from 1:15 to 2, starting in I think the second week in September, and run for 7 weeks. And then Tamara and I are going to do this White and Woke thing on Thursday evenings, the second and fourth Thursdays of September and October.
Yeah, let me read that. Let me read off what that is. So this class is called White and Woke, and how do I wake up other white people? If you are white and you are woke, and many around you don't seem to get it, racism, race relations are at the root of this country's divide, and you're the only one talking about it. So this is for those white people that are woke and having a hard time, or just wanting to better navigate the conversation around race, racism, and race relations. These, you need support, and this is where David and I have a fall series, and it's Thursday, September 13th, Thursday, September 27th, Thursday, October the 11th, and Thursday, October 25th. It's a 4-week series from 6:30 to 9:30, and it's online, so you can do this from the comfort of your own home. And Mr. John Armwood, he has a YouTube channel. It's called Armwood Opinion. He's sharing a lot of information around technology, race and race relations. What else, Mr. John?
And politics. I mean, I had a lot of fun earlier this week with what I did, showing how our political system has evolved through the use of technology. Yep. And I say evolved, not transformed, because I really believe it hasn't transformed, but we just do it and do the same things in different ways. And it's kind of interesting. I also have an Armwood Opinion blog where I post, besides that, other informative things that I find all over the internet. Because I'm a researcher. That's what I like to do. I'm a geek at heart, and I'm always researching stuff. So I post a lot of information daily on that. I also do it with technology too, where I post if you're interested in like technology and mobile phones and tech computers and stuff like that, I post tons of reviews of that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely on to something, and I'm just excited that you and John and David, you guys are my co-hosts in this journey. And we're doing some great work. So thank you, Tanza, for offering us and planting that seed that we actually get out and get beyond our boundaries right here in the Metro Atlanta area.
Well, give us an invite. Give us a date, a time, and place.
Yeah, we're gonna work on something, John. I'll actually reach out to her. We'll definitely work on something. But yeah, getting back to the topic at hand, Black women and our political power. We are at the forefront of change here in this nation. And Black women are going to be a huge part of this process, and Black people and brown people and all minorities and people of color. If the Democratic Party does not dive in and gather all of their people, all of us together, Black, brown, white, gather us together, we're going to continue to lose, David.
Yeah, as Richard Nixon said, there's a silent majority out there, and it's just not the one that he was
addressing
talking about. There is a silent majority out there, and it's just waiting to be mobilized. That's what my feeling is.
Yeah. And Black women have been doing this. This is the key.
Yeah.
We have to remember this. I know from back in the 30s where and we can go back to the 19th century with people like Harriet Tubman, a bunch of them. But in the 30s we had people like Mary McLeod Bethune, who was in Eleanor Roosevelt's ear every day talking about these issues. I know because my mother was sitting right there working as her secretary while this was going on. My Aunt Blanche used to travel around the country for the Republican Party trying to get anti-lynching legislation.
Anti-lynching, yes. Yeah.
And Black women have been doing this all through this country's history. And Black women do vote. And I just really have to attack that myth because I like numbers. I was a political scientist. That's my background before law. And crunching numbers is something I've done. I worked on a zillion campaigns. Black women do vote. We have to get young people of color to vote. That's where the problem is. Black mature women vote. It's the young people that we have to show them that there is a causal connection between voting and issues that relate to them. And that's really where I think the focus needs to be for the whole withhold your vote.
And I would add to that I think there are an awful lot of formerly incarcerated people, most of whom are African-American men, who don't think they can vote. And I think, and in Georgia, they can, right, John? I mean, I think go ahead.
No, yes, definitely. You have to request, permission to vote. You have to go. There's the process for it, but you can vote because a lot of states you can't. But in Georgia, you can. You have to apply to it. It's not just registering to vote. You have to go to
just roadblocking way and look, in Florida there are 2 million people who can't vote because Florida permanently bars you from if you've been convicted of a felony. And so in Florida, there's an amendment to the Constitution of Florida that's being worked on now, organized around, to add an amendment that people who are out of prison can vote in Florida elections. I mean, 2 million people, most of whom are working people, many, probably a majority of whom are African American. What does that mean? Talk about gerrymandering. You don't need to gerrymander when you're eliminating a substantial portion of certainly the balance of power. You
mentioned Michelle Alexander last week, the new Jim Crow. Right. This is one of the issues that she harped on.
Yeah, and that's where I really think we need to work on this, because in Georgia, one of the things that from working with the End New Jim Crow Action Committee that I've worked with for years, that started out as a study group on Michelle Alexander's book. One of the things that is the case with the mass incarceration is that it leads to this disenfranchisement, and the disenfranchisement means that the Black vote is watered down.
Yes,
but the other thing about it is that in Georgia, almost 50% of the incarcerated people in the state of Georgia are European American. Okay, it is the highest proportion of incarcerated European Americans of anywhere in the country except Mississippi and Alabama.
Yeah.
Duh. working class poor whites who are unable to afford attorneys, who are the ones that have the most interest in fighting for the rights of incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. So for them and their families, this becomes a really critical issue. And the way to get to folks like that is to point out that the incarceration system is for poor people only.
Yes.
People don't go to prison. Yes. I mean, we know that at least intuitively, people, working class white people understand that rich people don't go to prison.
There's no question about it.
So and not only that, they get away with murder in other ways as well, eating on their taxes and scamming people for in other ways in business forms, and spreading the opioid crisis. So we're really talking about how to hold the elites accountable. And by the way, one of the things that Michelle Alexander talks about is that the war on drugs, which really began in earnest under the Reagan administration, one of the things that happened was that all of the people who in the Attorney General's office, the prosecutors in the Attorney General's office who were dedicated to fighting white collar crime were moved over into the drug task forces. So we can date the beginnings of the impunity in the banking system from that time. And the first thing that happened was the savings and loan crisis, right? In 87.
And a key point, David, that she makes is this occurred before the crack epidemic, because many people conflate that. This was nothing to do with the crack epidemic.
Right.
This was an extension of Nixon's '68 campaign when he ran for president on law and order.
Right.
The biggest crook around. Had to be part of Gerald Ford.
Yeah.
And then when Reagan came in, announced his presidency in just outside of Philadelphia, Mississippi, talking about states' rights, and then initiated the war on drugs in full force. And it was really a war on the disenfranchisement of people of color. That's when the gerrymandering started. That's when the increased penalties started. And you'd had some of that beforehand. I mean, in New York, you had the Rockefeller and his draconian anti-crime bills, but this increased across the nation,
federal
in states, and then federal legislation too. But the state is where 74% of all criminal cases are prosecuted, and the federal drug laws became horrendous. And I have to point out, many people of color who in government were part of this, even reluctantly, during the Clinton administration. And I can name names. A certain Harlem congressman named Charles Rangel jumped into it. People got on Hillary Clinton for her statements about calling these drug criminals. I forgot the horrible term that she did, but people like Charles Rangel were doing the same thing. Yeah. He was a Harlem congressman.
And that's
did not, but he did.
That's James Foreman Jr.'s book that just came out. James Foreman Jr., son of James Foreman.
James Foreman, yeah.
In SNCC, one of the founders of SNCC. Yeah. But I think also, John, there is an institutional, framework that made this possible, and that is the ghettoization, the segregation of people of color, particularly African Americans, that allowed law enforcement to focus its attention and resources in the Black community, where a lot of the dealing, because we know that the same amount of drug use and drug dealing was going on in the suburbs, but in the Black community it was done on the street, for instance. So with the ability to arrest people without so-called violating their constitutional rights they were more vulnerable, in other words, and and also so that's really a critical piece of this whole thing.
No, it
And
is. And also
then,
the fact that no matter where you were, if you're black, you're stopped. I was stopped with cancer at the Staten Island ferry terminal in 2015. I filed a complaint and pushed it all the way up the system and got
nothing.
nowhere because they ignored it. I mean,
Yeah,
stop and frisk was the most horrible
yeah,
violation of human rights,
yeah.
and under this broken windows policing philosophy,
And
it
that's
was started in New York by
yeah.
Bratton, and it spread around the country, and people you would be stopped for nothing, and it directly violates a Supreme Court case, Terry v. Ohio, which says there must be reasonable suspicion to stop someone. This is back in 1968. We used to call it as teenagers the three blacks in a car rule. I literally on one street in Steve
Now it's one black in a car, right?
no, but three blacks in a row, you were going to stop. We counted 8 times in a row. All of us had much more education than any of those cops that
Yeah,
stopped us. That was the most aggravating thing about it. You
yeah.
know, none of us would have ever considered being a police officer. The average IQ of a police officer in the United States, as found by the U.S. District Court in the case of Johnson versus the city of New Haven, Connecticut, was 104. None
Well,
of us
I don't know if
had
my
education.
IQ is any higher than that, but
Yes, it
but in
is.
any
Yes, it
case,
is. Yes, it
no.
is.
I mean, I think
Yes,
that
it is.
there really is, an issue here. It's particularly irritating for educated folks, but
Irritating for everybody.
the answer, I think, and now that so much of the big city police forces are people of color, right? They are actually, but they don't account for the vast majority of police in the
And the
United States.
management, though, is not. And
Yeah,
that's the key. I know New York very, very well. I've kept up with it because I'm from there and I have close ties to people there. The management is still the old white elite, and they set the policies.
they set the policy.
They set
Yeah,
targets.
yeah,
You have to arrest a certain numbers of people, and this has been a major problem. It's happened here in Atlanta, and being stopped, yeah, and arrested. You mentioned earlier about being arrested. So the caller, someone posted about being arrested for marijuana charges. Let me give you an example. In the state of Georgia, you can be arrested for having under an ounce of marijuana. Now, the city of Atlanta has changed its regulations on how it approaches that. But in most of the unincorporated counties, you can be arrested for
yeah.
under an ounce of marijuana. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that it does, I think, John, is that it hampers people's freedom of movement.
Of course it does. The
That's
stop and frisk
basic,
policies.
a basic human right of freedom of movement, which did not exist for African Americans under slavery, did not exist
It's
under
never
Jim
existed.
Crow. It's now been translated and modernized into this new system in which people are afraid to go outdoors. And the same is true for people who are undocumented.
Yeah,
They have
it's never been different. It's always been
right.
this way.
So the question we need to ask ourselves is, one of the things I think that I have to address, that is my responsibility, is how to convince European Americans that this idea that the police are protecting them from black people, or undocumented immigrants and all of this other stuff that runs through people's heads because they're given those messages. How do we counter those messages? How do we get to the point where we say that the criminality in this country is not about street crime? The tremendous damage that criminality does is mostly white collar crime, including the opioid epidemic. If they can't see that, get that through their heads.
But they look at those young people differently, and this is the thing.
Yeah.
And and this goes back to something. I know you don't care for him, but I love him. Derek Bell. He talked about.
No, I think he's great.
He talked about the he used to do these various scenarios, and one was the myth of the white cloud. This is back in the 80s, that a white cloud passed over America, and afterwards, all of the white kids started having the same problems that the so-called kids in the ghettos had.
Mm-hmm.
The drug use, all that kind of stuff. And how would America respond if that had happened? We are seeing what he predicted happen right now.
Right.
The opioid crisis is looked at as a sickness, as a problem. We need to reach out to these kids, as opposed to the very harsh way that Black kids have been treated, particularly during the whole crack epidemic. Go ahead.
We're at the top of the hour. You guys
You're
are yes. We're at the top of the hour. So I want to thank you guys. These conversations, today's broadcast was about Black women and the political power that we have. I gave David and John so much room to kind of run with it. I never try to restrain their dialogue, because I know that they are knowledgeable and they'll bring all kinds of different insight. But political power of Black women right now is this is the answer to the big tent, to the solidarity that David talks about, holding our candidates accountable. Black women are on the forefront of political change here in this country. So John Armwood, I want to thank you. It's always a pleasure. He is on YouTube, everybody, at Armwood Opinion. Go follow him, listen. He has some great videos on his YouTube page. David and I, we're getting ready to do our White and Woke series. The website is right here on your screen. It's tamarashealy.com/acknowledge the divide.
And my at Emory Continuing Ed, go to that website if you're interested in that class on what is white privilege.
Yeah, White and Woke. The classes are Thursday, September 13th, Thursday, September 27th, Thursday, October the 11th, Thursday, October 25th, 6:30 to 9:30. This class is online, so you get a one-on-one, up close and personal. Have a relationship with me and David. You'll get a chance to talk to us directly. So it's a great class, very limited seating. So make sure you go ahead and register. Always a pleasure, guys.
All right, it's a pleasure. I want to make one last point.
Yes.
There's no accident that we are being led, that David and I are being led by a strong, young woman.
Right.
As I always say, resistance is not futile.
Right on, John Armwood. Yes.
And we're going to close our broadcast with just that. Thank you for joining us on this week's broadcast. We'll be back next Friday, 11 o'clock a.m. For these candid conversations. And I just want to thank you guys for joining us. And thank you, my trusty co-host.
One last point, one last thing. RESPECT.
RESPECT. Let's take it out with some more of Areatha Franklin. Here you go.
For your presence, Lord. And I know you'll reach out and take mine. You pick our hand. They go away. And the wind drives my mind. All we need is Jesus to make the right hand.
Most people don't know how much work she did with Martin Luther King. She devoted an enormous piece of her life to Martin Luther King, which meant giving of herself, yet she herself was not a sloganeer or a polemicist.
And every one of our lives is almost done.
All right. You guys have a great week. We'll see you back here next Friday, same time, same channel. Thank you.